Welcome to a new Oceanleaf video, and today we are going to talk about our top Microsoft Entra features. So Microsoft Entra is our core identity security product, and some really hidden gems do exist in that product. And today I brought Sebastian to talk about this feature. So maybe let us know a few things about you.
Sure. My name is Sebastian, and I live and work in Denmark. I work with organizations in all sizes, but I primarily work with the SMB segment. I specialize in identity access management, but I do help with the overall security of organizations.
Great. So as you see, he's the right man for this job. Great, so let's get started. But before we kick things off, really want to just emphasize again, conditional access is the heart of your identity security in Microsoft Cloud. So this is the most important features because here you can configure your authentication requirements, and essentially with conditional access and enforcing multi-factor authentication, you can prevent 99.99% of all attacks. So it's really powerful. And in terms of identity, your go-to solution, the first thing you should configure in any tenant or review in any tenant, and make sure really to have a standardized set, a baseline security for conditional access. Now, a few things to keep in mind when configuring conditional access is what I want to hand over to Sebastian.
Yes. So from my experience, using persona-based conditional access policies is the best way to ensure that we hit all of the different types of identities in our organizations, and depending on the types of access that they need and the types of controls that are available. And within larger organizations, we often have more different types of personas, but even with that, there are a few different foundational policies, which we can also see on the screen here. Some of the biggest mistakes that I often see are the gaps that can be created with policies that haven't been thoroughly tested beforehand, blocking dependencies on different kind of applications, forgetting to exclude or excluding too many different personas and identities, over-engineering policies, trying to get them to do things that it's not meant to do, or that simply just doesn't work. And the ballooning of policy stacks, it's much better to have focused policies and a few policies than just having like 150 policies. So that's definitely something that I help my clients to go through when setting up conditional access.
Absolutely valuable input here. And if you wonder how to get started, you see some baseline policies here and also the blog of Sebastian, which is called chanceofsecurity.com. And you can definitely start out there, read his blogs, and feel free to have a look at his concepts, and then you will understand what he means with common mistakes and also how to configure it cleanly. Yeah, when already talking about conditional access, we should highlight authentication strengths. Previously in conditional access, we used to enforce multi-factor authentication as a grant condition. Now that's obviously a good thing, you might think, because yeah, it's multi-factor authentication, it's secure. Use authentication strengths whenever possible. These are essentially a collection of selected multi-factor authentication methods in your tenant, for example, passwordless methods or phishing-resistant MFA for certain things. So as you go along, you can configure those authentication strengths in your tenant and then use it in a conditional access policy to be enforced. For example, we brought that for you. I think phishing-resistant MFA is really mandatory for all administrators nowadays and can be enforced right through authentication strengths. Now, often confused with those authentication strengths are authentication contexts. But to explain the difference here, I really want to give it to Sebastian again.
Yes. So this is something that I often get asked about, because it can be a bit confusing with the same terms used over and over again. So authentication context is, we need to think about it as a tag that we can set on different resources within our organization, which can then be used within conditional access. Authentication context really helps us with granularity on different resources. This can be PIM activations, it can be protected actions, sensitivity labels, MCAS sessions, and even custom applications, helping us to enforce specific requirements when we need a bit more than conditional access can do on its own. And when we go into these protected actions, which are specific high privileged actions within Microsoft Entra, such as deleting, creating, editing authentication conditional access policies, or hard deleting objects, we might want to further require specific requirements depending on the action, and this is even for authenticated legitimate administrators with the right access. So even if you have a global admin, that shouldn't directly allow you to delete all of the conditional access policies. That's when we use authentication context, and then that used in tandem with authentication context can then be used to require these step-up authentications, as we can see in this example here, where we try to delete a conditional access policy and required to do a step-up or re-authentication with the specific requirement terms within the authentication strength.
Yeah, really important, and should be also, I think, mandatory for all admins, I think.
Yes.
Great. So yeah, another cool feature in Microsoft Entra is Workload ID Protection. Now think of some automations you build. Think of application principles or enterprise applications into your tenant that speak and get access to different resources in your tenant. Now those might have access and also privileged access that you should secure. And Workload ID Protection is actually a feature to make sure that security is there, and also this access is secured, and this over the whole life cycle. So maybe a hint here is that it requires an additional Entra ID premium license to do all of these things. But essentially, I set up a demo because I wanted to try that out, how good it works. And for that, I created an app registration in a demo tenant and exposed a secret credential on GitHub publicly. So meaning everyone, including attackers, could access that secret and gain some access to my tenant. Now, after exposing that secret, 24 hours later, I got an alert through Microsoft Entra ID, and it detected it indeed as risky workload identity and found out that the credentials had been leaked. So that's actually one of the features that Workload ID Protection does very, very good. Now, one more thing is to include Workload ID Protection in conditional access, meaning that you can not just use users, but also workload identities to protect in the policy. And assuming one of these workload IDs has a medium or high risk, it will be blocked from accessing further resources. So that's actually quite a powerful thing to do here, because identity aren't just users, it's also identities in terms of objects, in terms of applications, managed identities, and so on. So Workload ID is your go-to solution for that. One other thing to highlight, unfortunately not very much seen in the wild, especially at SMBs, is Log Analytics Workspace, but this is really a key thing to implement. Now, if you want to include Entra ID to Log Analytics, you need to configure that in Monitoring and Health under Diagnostic Settings. And with that, you can make sure that you can store all those identity-related events longer than 30 days, because Entra only offers us those 30 days. But in realities, in reality, attackers tend to be way longer in your environment than 30 days, and it's really crucial to have those logs in your logging solution. And one more benefit that comes along with it is that you can use KQL to query your logs and even use such nice visualizations such as Azure workbooks to visualize your data and get some insights in your data. And this is also very helpful when speaking with the CEO or the CISO of your company to gain some attention on those security initiatives. Great.
Yes. One other feature that is something that any organization really should have, regardless of the size, is privileged identity management, or PIM. This feature provides time and approval-based just-in-time access to different kind of permissions, resources, or even groups. PIM helps us to tighten our security, to reduce the risks with overprivileged accounts, and at the same time adds visibility to usage of these different accounts. It also helps us with the zero trust principle of least privilege, as only users that needs the permission at the time they need it has the access. When we go into utilizing PIM, we do have a few different options. There are the portal, the GUI within Entra portal. There's also via the Azure portal, depending on the resource. We can also use it programmatically via the Graph API or SDK, or the Azure ARM API. On top of that, there are multiple different community tools. Some of the ones that I use are the EasyPIM, which helps us create policies, configure policies for the different roles. And there's also the tool that I created, which I of course use, PIM activation, which helps helps with bulk activations, giving a Windows forms that can help smooth out the activation. Another great thing with PIM activation is that we can again utilize Authentication Context that we talked about earlier, and the Authentication Strength. So in this example, we can see Niklas tries to activate the global administrator, and with this he is prompted for additional re-authentication, which again requires the phishing resistant authentication. This again helps tighten the security and ensure that no one accidentally just elevates and has permissions that they don't really need at the moment. I think this is one of the features one of the greatest features.
Absolutely.
Yes, and on top of this, we can also use PIM and such to help manage administrative units, which can be thought of as the cloud's OUs, organizational units, as we know them from on-premise. This can hold logical groups that can hold users, devices, groups, and can be dynamically or statically assigned. These helps us delegate different administrative tasks across our organizations. And in my case, it's more usually used for sensitive users, devices, and groups, utilizing what we call restrict management AUs. Restrict management AUs is a way to group different users, devices, and groups. But the thing that that's different about this is that it breaks role or permission inheritance. So that means a global administrator on the tenant level will not be able to manage the members of this restricted management AU unless directly assigned a permission on this level. Yes, one of the big things that I work with a lot is collaboration. And that's because in our more and more intertwined world today, we have so many different collaborations, guests, service providers, partners, multiple tenants within an organization, and so on. And within this, we have a few different ways to collaborate. We have cross-tenant synchronization, where we can synchronize member type users across different tenants without having to manually do the work. So it automates the provisioning and the deprovisioning of users across tenants, and can be bidirectional or unidirectional. On top of this, we do have business-to-business collaboration, where we have multiple ways to collaborate with specific tenants, allowing us to trust them a bit more. We can enforce specific requirements for these collaborators. For example, if we trust the MFA token that they have, then we can use all of the available authentication methods that Microsoft Entra supports, and we can then use the full scope of the authentication strength. One of the biggest issue that I run into when I talk to clients about managing guests and collaborators are the management that's associated with inviting and removing and all of that of guest accounts. To help with that, we have the custom user flows of the self-service sign-up, which allows external users to create their own guest accounts within an organization's tenant. These can then be extended via API connectors, which can be used to automate a lot of different things. For example, utilizing Azure Logic Apps, which we can then use to run all different kinds of automations. This helps our administrators by decreasing the tasks that they have to go through for managing guests. In this small clip, we can see that Nicholas is trying to access my tenant, but doesn't exist. And then when he chooses to create a new one, he doesn't create a new account, of course, he just creates the guest object in my tenant. So as we can see, after authenticating, he will be here he will be asked if he consents to being created as a guest in my tenant. And after going through this, he will then I've configured this user flow to require a few these automations that I create afterwards. And in my opinion, this is an awesome way to minimize administrative overhead when managing guest users.
Absolutely. And now I'm a guest in your tenant, so everything worked perfectly fine. Great. So Sebastian, it was quite fun to talk with you about all these great features in Microsoft Entra. Now, if you couldn't get enough of it, feel free to visit his blog, chanceofsecurity.com, or also my blog, oceanleaf.ch. And I'm sure we'll see on the next video when talking about other great technology. So thanks again for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.